If God is in control and has a plan, why do we still have terrible things like this virus? How does that fit into his good plan? If everything revolves around Jesus and God is bringing in Jesus' perfect kingdom, why isn't that kingdom already here if God is in control? Well, God uses suffering like this for our good in different ways. And I can think of at least 5 different reasons from the Bible of why God includes things like this in his good plan. Today we can only reflect on one major reason. And that will lead us to think about an issue we have, each of us personally. That will then lead us to an issue that God has himself personally. And then once we have dealt with those issues, we can come back to 4 other ways in which God uses suffering, like this pandemic, for good. So keep coming to these posts if you want to get a fuller understanding. One of the major ways God uses significant world events and suffering like this is to let us know that we are experiencing the beginnings of birth pains. The beginnings of birth pains. What do I mean by that? Well, birth pains announce the arrival of something, don't they? One evening in France, my wife, 3 children and I, we were on our way to a New Year's Eve party we'd been invited to. My wife Libby was pregnant, was about a week away from the due date of our 4th child being born. And we were 40 minutes into the drive. And Libby started experiencing a contraction. She knew exactly what was going on. Yet Libby said to me, "Keep going, Xavier, because sometimes this can happen and it goes away." However, after a few more contractions, 10 minutes apart, we thought, uh-oh, this could be the day. We'd better ring our friends and send our apologies, turn around, head home, get closer to the hospital. Yet when we arrived home an hour or so later, those birth pains and contractions had completely stopped again. And it stayed like that, no action for nearly a week before Libby really went into labour. Birth pains announce the arrival of a child. Great event. They can come intermittently. When you have them, you know where it's all headed. There's no doubt about it, they announce that day of birth to come. God tells us in the Bible that significant world events, suffering like this pandemic, announce a major day to come. Things like wars, earthquakes and famines and pestilences and viruses that come along intermittently in our lives, yet they announce a big day coming. It is a day which will bring in, or give birth, if you like, to a new creation, and where that taste of Jesus' perfect loving rule that we were thinking about in our last post will not be simply a taste, but it will be the reality all the time. The Bible calls that day that is coming the day of the Lord, or the day of judgment. It's a marvelous day when God will fix everything up. All wrongs will be righted, all injustices paid for, all suffering done away with, all wars will cease, all death will be gone, and those who died, trusting in God, will be brought back to life. It is the day where God will put everything right. So God uses things like this pandemic to point us to that great day ahead. However, you might be thinking, viruses, wars, earthquakes and famines, they are not good things. If they point to a day which will be great, why are the indicators of that day coming not so great? Why are they bad and painful? It is because there is something not right, something that needs fixing in our relationship with God here and now. That's why. You see, facing God on that great day of judgment where he will put all things right, and not being prepared for this and not being right with him, will mean we will face something much, much worse than what we are living through with this pandemic. And so wars and famines and earthquakes and pandemics like this, they cry out to us that something needs fixing. And that something that needs fixing is our relationship with God. It's like God is using a megaphone saying to thousands and millions of people, "You are not right with me." So God sends us these massive wake-up calls, if you like, these birth pains, to tell us something big is coming and to urge us to get right with him before it's too late. Now, God does this because he loves us, and he's patient with us and doesn't want anyone to perish, and he wants everyone to turn back to find life. I wonder if you have done that. I know that many who are listening will have done that. God has called you back to himself, and you know what has been fixed in your relationship with him, and you know how God fixed it. But some of you might be asking, what could possibly be wrong in my relationship with God? I'm okay. I'm not perfect, but I'm okay. Perhaps there is something wrong with God, that he can't just simply let me into his kingdom. Well, we need to think about this and take the time. So we will do that in the next 2 posts. There is an issue we have. There is an issue God has. And once we consider how God actually fixes those 2 issues, then we can come to 4 other ways that God uses suffering, like this pandemic, for our good. So see you next time. Bye.